Things are not looking good behind the scenes for the Miami Dolphins. Buckle up, because we need to talk about the bombshell that dropped on us. Before we go any further, I want to hear from you. Do you agree that Chris Grier should be fired immediately? If so, hit the like button. If you think he should remain as the Dolphins GM in 2025, hit the dislike button. If possible, comment something like this: to live the new, you have to let go of the old. This is exactly what I want to talk to you about. I'm very upset. Our team owner Stephen Ross released a statement after that brutal loss earlier today, and it left fans everywhere absolutely furious. In this 9-minute statement, Ross thanked the players, coaches, and fans for their support during the 2024 season, acknowledging his frustration with how things turned out. But here's the kicker. He confirmed that Chris Grier and Mike McDaniel will remain to lead the team into the 2025 season. Let that sink in for a second. After 24 years without a playoff win, after everything we've seen on the field this season, we're holding onto the same lead. Now, let's break down what that means, because the fan base's reaction is intense, and rightfully so. People are calling this a slap in the face, a declaration that the status quo is, in fact, good enough. Despite Ross's claim that continuity shouldn't be confused with accepting mediocrity, holding onto the current lead feels like exactly that. You have a GM in Chris Grier who's been around for years and hasn't built a consistent contender. Fans have lost confidence in his ability to draft the right players or build a solid offensive line to protect our quarterback, who has a history of injuries. And let's not forget Mike McDaniel. Yes, he's a brilliant offensive mind, but he's also shown some serious game management flaws. Week after week, we've seen questionable decisions, poor clock management, ineffective plays, and an unwillingness to make adjustments when things aren't working. What's really rubbing fans the wrong way is the lack of accountability. Stephen Ross says he shares in the fans' frustration, yet he's bringing back the very people responsible for that frustration. It's like saying, hey, I know things aren't great, but we're just going to keep doing what we've been doing. That's hard to swallow when you're investing your time, money, and emotions into this team. Season ticket holders are particularly upset, feeling overlooked and underappreciated. Other teams send their loyal fans fancy season ticket packages, while Dolphins fans get a basic envelope in the mail. And then there's the issue of social media influencers getting exclusive merch and experiences, while the diehard fans who've been with the team through thick and thin are left empty-handed. Now, let's talk about Tyreek Hill, because his comments after the game have added another layer of drama. Hill, one of the team's brightest stars, hinted that he's considering his future. He said he needs to do what's best for him and his family, whether that's staying in Miami or moving on. That's a massive red flag. Hill is a game changer on the field, and if he's not fully committed to the Dolphins, it raises serious questions about the locker room environment and the team's direction. Financially, trading Hill would be complicated. If the Dolphins were to move him before June 1st, they'd be hit with a $28.3 million dead cap charge. After June 1st, it drops to $12.7 million in dead money for 2025. It's a tough situation, but the possibility of losing Tyreek Hill is real, and fans are understandably worried. So, where does this leave us heading into the 2025 season? Right now, fan confidence is at an all-time low. Expectations have plummeted. Many fans are saying they're done hoping for a turnaround as long as Grier and McDaniel are in charge. It's frustrating to see other teams make bold changes when things aren't working, while the Dolphins seem stuck in a cycle of mediocrity. And that's what hurts the most, the feeling that the team is content with just being average. The next few months are going to be crucial. Will the Dolphins make any significant changes in free agency or the draft? Can they regain the trust of the fan base? Right now, it's hard to be optimistic, but one thing's for sure, the fans deserve better. They've been loyal through years of disappointment, and they're tired of hearing promises of change without seeing real action. Now, I want to hear from you. What's your take on Stephen Ross's statement? Do you agree with bringing back Grier and McDaniel, or do you think it's time for a complete overhaul? How do you feel about Tyreek Hill's comments? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's get the conversation going. And as always, fins up. It's clear that emotions are running high, and I get it. Being a Dolphins fan isn't easy. Year after year, we've been told that we're building something, that success is right around the corner. But here we are, 24 years without a playoff win. Think about that for a second. An entire generation of Dolphins fans has never experienced a postseason victory. And yet, instead of shaking things up, we're sticking with the same leadership that's repeatedly fallen short. Let's dive deeper into what's wrong with this picture. Chris Grier has been with the organization since 2000 and has served as general manager since 2016. In that time, we've seen plenty of flashy moves, big trades, blockbuster free agent signings, and high-profile draft picks. but what we haven't seen is sustainable success. Grier's biggest issue? The offensive line. It's been a glaring problem for years, and he hasn't fixed it. Protecting your quarterback is one of the most basic principles in football. Yet season after season, we've watched quarterbacks get pummeled because the O-line can't hold up. Tua Tagovailoa, for all his talent, has a history of injuries. And instead of building a fortress in front of him, Grier has given us a patchwork line that crumbles under pressure. And let's talk about Tua for a moment. The Dolphins have committed to him as the franchise quarterback, extending his contract early. But was that the right move? Tua has shown flashes of brilliance, no doubt about it. But he's also struggled to stay healthy. And when you combine that with a shaky offensive line, it's a recipe for disaster. The Dolphins have put a lot of eggs in the Tua basket, but the question remains, can he stay on the field long enough to lead this team to success? Now, Mike McDaniel, he's a likable guy, and his offensive mind is one of the brightest in the league. But he's still young and inexperienced as a head coach. We've seen him make the same mistakes repeatedly: poor clock management, questionable play calling, and a reluctance to adapt when things aren't working. There's a sense that he's trying to outsmart everyone else, but sometimes the basics are what matter most. Winning football games isn't just about drawing up clever plays. It's about making smart decisions in critical moments. And that's where McDaniel has struggled. Let's not forget special teams either. Our unit was dead last in the NFL. That's unacceptable. And yet, the coaching staff responsible for that performance is coming back. Why? It's maddening to think that this organization is willing to tolerate such mediocrity. At some point, you have to make changes. You have to send a message that good enough isn't good enough anymore. And then there's Tyreek Hill. His post-game comments were alarming. For him to say he needs to do what's best for his family, whether that's staying in Miami or moving on, raises serious red flags. Hill is one of the best wide receivers in the league, and losing him would be a huge blow. But let's be real, if Hill doesn't believe in the direction this team is heading, why would anyone else? His potential departure speaks volumes about the state of the locker room and the organization as a whole. Here's another thing to consider: the Dolphins' cap situation. Over the past couple of years, the team has moved money around to create cap space, making aggressive moves to try to win now. But those moves have backfired. Instead of building a team capable of competing for championships, we've ended up with a roster full of question marks and a lot of dead money tied up in contracts. It feels like we're stuck in a vicious cycle of trying to patch holes instead of building a solid foundation. What's most frustrating is that we've seen other teams make the tough decisions needed to turn things around. Look at the Detroit Lions. They were a laughingstock for years, but they cleaned house, brought in the right leadership, and now they're one of the most exciting teams in the league. The Dolphins, on the other hand, seem content to keep spinning their wheels. It's like we're stuck in the twilight zone, repeating the same mistakes over and over again. The fans are fed up. They've been loyal through years of disappointment, but loyalty only goes so far. People are tired of investing their time, money, and emotions into a team that doesn't seem to share their sense of urgency. Season ticket holders, in particular, feel disrespected. They're the ones who show up week after week, rain or shine, to support this team. And what do they get in return? A mediocre product on the field and a manila envelope in the mail. It's insulting. So, Dolphins fans, I want to hear from you. Are you as frustrated as I am? Do you think Stephen Ross made the right decision to keep Grier and McDaniel? What would you do if you were in charge of the team? And what's your take on Tyreek Hill's comments? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Let's have an honest conversation about where this team is heading. As always, fins up, but man, it's hard to keep the faith right now.